Can the unbeatable truly be beaten? On the night Manny Pacquiao got dropped, the answer was shockingly clear, and it changed the course of boxing history. This wasn't just another fight, it was the fight of the decade, a clash to crown the champion of the decade between two legends. But what unfolded on December 8, 2012 was nothing short of jaw-dropping. Manny Pacquiao versus Juan Manuel Márquez IV was set to settle a rivalry that had left fans and fighters unsatisfied, split across 3 previous bouts with no clear victor. But on this night, everything would change in a split second. A devastating knockout that sent Pacquiao crashing face first into the canvas, silencing the MGM Grand and shattering the aura of invincibility he'd built over his legendary career. In this video, we'll take you inside that unforgettable KO moment, examining the fight's build-up, the historic 6th round right hand, and the impact it had not only on Pacquiao's career, but on Márquez's legacy. Pacquiao may have been the favorite, but Márquez's final punch that night redefined his career and delivered one of the sport's most iconic moments. Stick around until the end for a twist you won't see coming.
We went over the rules in the dressing room. I want you to keep this fight clean at all times, protect yourself at all times, and what I say you must obey. Good luck, touch them up. Buenas suerte.
Before we dive into that fateful night, let's rewind and dig into the fierce rivalry, the bad blood, the controversial decisions, and the long-lasting frustration that brewed for nearly a decade. The saga of Manny Pacquiao and Juan Manuel Márquez wasn't just another boxing feud. It was a clash of styles, personalities, and national pride that gripped fans around the globe. Each of their first 3 bouts ended with more questions than answers, and every close decision only added fuel to a rivalry that demanded resolution. Their very first fight set the tone for this bitter rivalry. It was 2004, and Pacquiao, with his blinding speed and relentless offense, came out swinging, knocking Márquez down not once, not twice, but 3 times in the opening round. The crowd was stunned. Márquez, known for his calculated counterpunching, was thrown off balance by Pacquiao's lightning-fast left hand. Yet as Pacquiao and his corner prepared to celebrate what seemed to be an easy victory, Márquez did something few expected. He got up and fought back. Through sheer grit and boxing IQ, Márquez clawed his way back, finding angles and landing counters to control much of the remaining rounds. By the final bell, many fans believed he'd done enough to win. But in one of the sport's most debated decisions, the fight was ruled a draw. A verdict that left Márquez feeling robbed and Pacquiao wondering if his win had somehow slipped through his gloves. And so, the rivalry was born. When they met again in 2008, the tension was palpable. Both men had something to prove, and neither was willing to back down. This time, it was Pacquiao who edged out Márquez in a split decision, a result that only stoked the fires of controversy. Once again, fans and analysts questioned whether the judges had given Pacquiao the nod due to his status as one of the sport's biggest stars, while Márquez and his supporters claimed he'd been denied a rightful victory due to his counterpunching style, a style that often requires a more discerning eye to appreciate its subtleties. By the time of their third meeting in 2011, the rivalry had escalated beyond boxing. This was more than a fight, it was personal. Márquez and Pacquiao's animosity spilled into the media, and the build-up was a spectacle of its own, with promotional events spanning across the globe. Once again, Pacquiao eked out a victory, this time a majority decision that was so contentious, it sent boos rippling through the Las Vegas crowd. Fans were outraged, and Márquez felt more embittered than ever. To him, it wasn't just a loss, it was an injustice. So when the 4th fight was announced, the stakes couldn't have been higher. For Pacquiao, this was his chance to silence the critics, to prove once and for all that he was the superior fighter. For Márquez, it was a shot at redemption, a final opportunity to set the record straight and claim the victory he believed had been denied him 3 times before. This was a fight that transcended the ring. It was a collision of pride, resilience, and a decade-long quest for closure. The promotion for their 4th encounter was unprecedented. HBO's 24/7 documentary series aired across multiple networks, immersing fans in the fighters' lives and giving them a front-row seat to the grueling training camps and emotional backstories that fueled this showdown. The fighters embarked on a press tour that spanned 25,000 miles, hitting 4 cities in 3 different countries, including Pacquiao's adopted hometown of Manila and Márquez's roots in Mexico City. By the time they finally stepped into the ring at the MGM Grand on December 8, 2012, the world was watching. This was it, the 4th and final showdown. And while fans were prepared for fireworks, no one could have predicted just how explosive the end would be. Stick around because as we take you round by round through this unforgettable night, you'll see the shocking twist that brought this epic rivalry to a dramatic conclusion and changed the course of boxing history forever. After 40 rounds across 3 previous fights, neither man had truly conquered the other. Every punch, every feint, and every dodge was etched into their minds, each fighter carrying the weight of the battles they waged. It was as if the boxing ring had transformed into a cauldron, and only one of these warriors would emerge. The first 2 rounds were tense, a silent duel of willpower. Both men moved cautiously like predators circling their prey. Pacquiao's speed was still razor-sharp, darting in with jabs and slipping back, elusive as a shadow. Márquez, ever the tactician, waited for an opening, gauging every moment, his eyes locked on Pacquiao like a hawk eyeing its target. There were a few sparks. Pacquiao threw a sharp right hook just before the bell in the first, a glimmer of what might be coming. Ringside commentators leaned toward Pacquiao, the judges nodding in his favor as the cleaner, more active boxer in those opening minutes. Yet beneath the surface, something was brewing. As the 3rd round began, Márquez shifted gears. He decided to go after Pacquiao's body, launching a calculated assault with sharp left hooks aimed at the ribs, just far enough to test his rival's patience. The strategy had a quiet brilliance. It slowed Pacquiao down, taking the spring out of his movement. A chill rippled through the crowd as Márquez, sensing the moment, feinted to the body again, drawing Pacquiao's guard downward. Then, with breathtaking precision, he arced an overhead right that crashed against Pacquiao's jaw, sending him tumbling to the canvas. Gas filled the air. Pacquiao's body was on the mat, but his spirit, defiant. He pushed himself up, shaking off the knockdown, but a flicker of doubt shadowed his eyes. He was suddenly mortal, and Márquez knew it. Freddie Roach was in Pacquiao's corner before he could even sit down, his voice steady but urgent. "You gotta get under that right hand, Manny. Don't pull away. Slip it, go under." Pacquiao nodded, his gaze distant, replaying that faithful punch over and over in his mind. This wasn't the invincible Pacquiao who'd stormed through so many challengers. This was a man on the verge of doubt. And as he rose for the 4th round, there was a carefulness in his step, a sharp contrast to his usual fire. Márquez, calm as ever, seized the moment. He moved in, peppering Pacquiao with calculated right-hand counters, each one landing like a blueprint of his mastery. The judges awarded him the round, and the crowd could feel the pendulum swinging, momentum shifting with every punch. Pacquiao returned to his corner, frustration flashing across his face. His own legend was on the line, but in that moment, he seemed unsure how to reclaim it. Then came round 5. This time, Pacquiao brought back the familiar fire, charging in with fierce left hands, each one thrown with an urgency that hadn't been there before. And finally, he broke through. His fist connected cleanly, and Márquez staggered backward, crashing to the canvas. The tables flipped once again. Pacquiao exhaled, a flash of triumph in his eyes. But Márquez was undeterred. Rising from the floor, he returned with a vicious straight right that collided with Pacquiao's chin, leaving him wobbling, his balance threatened by the impact. Blood began to trickle from Márquez's nose, staining the canvas, but he didn't retreat. They stood in the center of the ring, trading mercilessly, a blur of fists and fury. Pacquiao's right hook connected hard, and for the first time, Márquez's knees buckled, his face a mask of blood as he backed away. Referee Kenny Bayless hovered closely, watching as the round drew to a breathless close. Round 6, Pacquiao moved in, his confidence returned, peppering Márquez with lefts and rights. The rhythm was back, the crowd roaring as their hero seemed to regain control. 10 seconds remained. Pacquiao's infamous combo loomed, the 1-2 jab straight left that felled so many before. He double feinted, and Márquez, a chess player in a brutal game, saw his move. Márquez ducked low, slipping under the jab, and with the strength of every fight, every near victory that had slipped through his fingers, he unleashed a right hand with flawless timing. It sailed through the air, landing with brutal precision on Pacquiao's mouth. Pacquiao's head snapped back, his body turning rigid, his legs folding beneath him as he fell face first onto the canvas. Silence gripped the stadium, absolute and chilling, as if the world had paused. Márquez darted to the corner, arms raised in triumph, his team flooding around him. In that moment, he was a conqueror. Kenny Bayless didn't even bother with the count. It was over. Pacquiao lay motionless until he was slowly helped to his stool, the image of defeat. The rivalry, after 42 grueling rounds, was finally settled. With a single perfect punch, Márquez had won. In the ring, battered but victorious, Márquez called his rival a great fighter, while Pacquiao, humbled and resolute, acknowledged his opponent's skill, admitting he deserved this victory. The story had closed, the rivalry etched into history, the final blow forever remembered as Márquez's triumph over a legend. The victory was a defining moment, but the aftermath would carry ripples far beyond the ring. Márquez's knockout punch in the 6th round wasn't just a win, it was a seismic shift in the boxing world. Fans and analysts alike hailed it as one of the greatest knockouts in the sport's history, a single blow that brought an end to a storied rivalry. Ring Magazine would go on to award the fight both Fight of the Year and Knockout of the Year, honors that solidified this clash as a historic event. In the wake of his triumph, Márquez gained a newfound reverence. Known throughout his career for his tactical brilliance and precision, he had until this moment often been overshadowed by Pacquiao's superstar status. But now he stood firmly on equal ground, his victory not just a personal achievement, but a statement that would reshape his legacy. The financial rewards were just as staggering. Pacquiao, the sport's established superstar, earned a guaranteed $26 million, while Márquez took home $6 million. The pay-per-view buy skyrocketed, with over 1 million fans paying to witness the culmination of this rivalry. The numbers spoke to the intense public fascination with these two fighters, a testament to the magnetic pull of their contrasting styles and personalities. For Márquez, who'd fought his entire career to carve a place among boxing's elite, this victory validated his journey and cemented his name in the annals of boxing. The aftermath of this fight reverberated across the boxing world and left deep impacts on both fighters' careers, their legacies, and the sport itself. The knockout, raw, brutal, and final, became one of the most unforgettable moments in boxing history. A defining event not just for Juan Manuel Márquez and Manny Pacquiao, but for every fan who watched it unfold. Márquez's victory by knockout with just a second remaining in the 6th round was a punch heard around the world, earning him immense acclaim and transforming his career in an instant. Named both Fight of the Year and Knockout of the Year by Ring Magazine, Márquez's calculated and powerful punch wasn't just the end of a fight, it was the moment he rose to legendary status. Having fought Pacquiao to controversial draws and narrow losses in their 3 previous bouts, he was finally victorious in a way that left no room for doubt. He'd not only defeated Pacquiao, he'd done so with a definitive finality, cementing his place in boxing history. However, beyond the dollar figures, the personal stakes for each fighter had been astronomical. For Márquez, this was vindication after years of disputed decisions. For Pacquiao, it was a rare and humbling defeat on one of the sport's biggest stages. The knockout's repercussions rippled into Pacquiao's career almost immediately. As news of his loss spread, speculation surged about his future, particularly as his political career in the Philippines was beginning to gather momentum. Commentators and fans wondered if the devastating defeat would prompt him to retire and focus on his role in Congress. For a moment, it seemed possible that Pacquiao, one of boxing's most celebrated champions, might hang up his gloves. But Pacquiao was not ready to step away from the sport. Driven by his resilient spirit and a desire to redeem himself, he hinted at a possible 5th fight with Márquez if it could be arranged. Although this rematch would ultimately never come to fruition, Pacquiao's determination to continue fighting became clear. He returned to the ring and embarked on a comeback, facing and defeating formidable opponents. His journey took him through victories over Brandon Rios, Timothy Bradley, and Chris Algieri, proving his skill and his resilience even after one of the most brutal knockouts of his career. Each victory added another chapter to his legacy and showcased his remarkable ability to bounce back. For Márquez, however, the victory was a career-defining high that came with mixed consequences. As he celebrated the pinnacle of his career, his fans hoped he would retire on that note of triumph. But Márquez wasn't done. He went on to fight Timothy Bradley, and while he fought valiantly, he ultimately lost by decision. Despite this setback, Márquez rebounded with a victory over Mike Alvarado, a fight that allowed him to retain the WBO International Welterweight title. This last triumph added a fitting postscript to his career, but it also left fans wondering if he'd missed the perfect moment to retire after his knockout of Pacquiao. The legacy of the rivalry continued to linger in boxing culture. For years after, debates erupted over who had ultimately won the rivalry. Pacquiao with more overall victories, or Márquez with the definitive knockout. That December night in 2012 became a focal point, a symbol of the rivalry's intensity and the brutal beauty of the sport. Fans continued to revisit the fight, replaying the final seconds when Márquez delivered the knockout heard around the world. It marked not just the conclusion of a rivalry, but the end of an era in boxing, a closing chapter in the story of 2 champions whose paths had collided in unforgettable ways. In the end, the bout was far more than a fight. It was a clash of wills, a test of resilience, and a story that would echo through the ages, reminding fans of the triumphs and tragedies that define boxing's greatest legends. What are your thoughts on this unforgettable rivalry? Who do you think truly won in the end? Was it Pacquiao with his resilience and unmatched comeback, or Márquez with that historic, career-defining knockout? Drop your thoughts in the comments, whether you've got memories of watching it live or fresh takes on what made this rivalry so iconic. Let's hear your take on one of boxing's greatest battles.